Welcome to the I Read the News Today, Oh Boy exhibit. This is the exhibit that's been about a year in the planning, and this is the culmination of that year's work. So I hope that you'll come and see the exhibit with me. I'm Ronna Leon. I'm the Benicia Poet Laureate, and I'm the director and creator of this exhibit. This exhibit is a unique exhibit. It paired poets and visual artists to respond to news. So this is what happened. These are the 14 pairs that were selected to become part of the program. They were chosen from basically 50 visual artists who submitted work that they had done before to me, and 50 poets that submitted poems to me saying that they wanted to take part in I Read the News Today, Oh Boy. Out of that rich choice, I was able to narrow the field to 14 people. What I was looking for was proximity of the pairs, also personalities where I thought that they would get along together and were interested in the same kind of news or news items. And also I was looking for diversity. So I was looking for both old and young, very experienced people in the arts, people that had never tried this kind of art before, also social activists who had done a lot of this kind of art before. So I was looking to have as many unusual kinds of pairs as we could have. And I think the result really shows that. For example, here we have Niels Peterson and Rebecca Palmer. They're both from the peninsula, Lower Peninsula. Niels was the poet laureate of San Mateo County, and he's in his almost 80 now. Rebecca is an established fine art photographer, and they were both very interested in the environment, and also a very personal kind of effect about their art. They were very interested in an intense personal kind of response, and their response is here on the wall. So this is the article they chose from the New York Times. This is Rebecca Palmer's piece that she chose, and this is Niels Peterson's piece and poem that he wrote in response. So that was one kind of grouping. As I mentioned before, here's another kind of grouping. This is Mary Rudge. She was also and still is the Poet Laureate of Alameda. This is her response, and this is Jan Cook's response. Both of these two people have been social activists almost their entire life. So this was a very familiar form of poetry and work for Mary Rudge to do, and also for Jan Cook. And they chose to respond to a historical situation about the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire that happened about 100 years ago. And they wanted to continue to have us respond and think about how we should still be honoring the people that died in that fire, which gave us a lot of the labor laws that we have and safety concerns that we now have in place for workforces. So that was their kind of intent. This is another example. San Francisco and from Benicia. Let me show you their picture because they're fun. They're right here. This is this couple. Lois was really apprehensive about doing this kind of work. She had never written this kind of poem before. She's done a lot of socially active work, but she had never used it in her artwork. Gall still working on her degree in San Francisco, but she wants to focus on political concerns. So she and Lois got together. Turned out they had a lot in common, and they did a piece that was basically about Boeing getting a very large contract in military contract and the effect that that had. So we have things from abstract and fine art, like if you turn around here. A piece by Deborah Stuckgold. She's from Oakland, and obviously it's a more abstract response. It's called Jasmine. Jasmine happens to be a plant that comes back no matter what you do to it. You can chop it off and the next year it'll still come back. So this is a reflection on a piece that has to do with a village, the Bedouin villages that were destroyed about 17 times. Maria Rosales did a similar kind of poem in also response to that same situation. So these are intensely personal ways of looking at the world. Another unusual pairing in the exhibit was David Starkey, who was in Rome on a sabbatical. He's actually a Santa Barbara. He's a retired poet laureate from the Santa Barbara area and also a professor, but he was in Rome on a sabbatical. And I was able to pair him with somebody who was from Iran, who I knew nothing about, who responded to the call to artists that I put out through the California Printmaking Association. He was a member. His name is Mirdad. He's actually a teacher of art in Iran, in Tehran. And it was very interesting to me to get correspondence from him. He's a very engaged person, and of course he comes from an area where there's intense censorship. So the censorship issues were the ones that David and he chose to focus on. But in one letter that David sent to me that Mirdad had sent to him, Mirdad said that it's impossible for him to even look up figurative painting in Iran because it's considered that it might be pornography or risque. So even though he teaches art, he can't look up figurative drawing or anything about the history of figurative drawing in his country. So it was very interesting for them to work together. Even though they worked long distance, they had Skype in common so they could actually talk to each other and they could email back and forth. And they had a very rich experience in doing this piece together. Within the exhibit itself, because we had so much diversity, it was really important to me that we hold it all together very tightly. My background is in the theater, so I wanted to create a kind of setting for it. I'm very nostalgic and interested in the demise of newspapers in our society. So for the year's time, I had many of my friends who traveled collect newspapers from all over the world. So in the gallery, you'll see that we have news from the Arab countries, we have news from Europe, we have news from America, we have news from very small presses and also very big presses here on the walls setting the stage. I also did these figures that have to do with the newsboys of the past. So as a nostalgic thing, we did newsboys all as the entrance figures, but also to make it so that although we did have a lot of seriousness, it was still approachable for the average person to come into the gallery and understand and enjoy this exhibit. And enjoy looking at these issues in our society. So that's the kind of thing we did. Each thing is, each of the red lines that you see in the gallery divide the sections of the work so that you, in each part, you will see 3 parts. You'll see the article, you'll see the visual response, and you'll see the poetic response to the same information. To point out 2 other things that were fun for me to do in the exhibit space, and one of them was to create this wave. I created this wave out of newspapers, and our local newspaper, this is the Benicia Herald, and for me the wave is actually a metaphor for about the way news comes in and hits us in waves out and through, that we may have longer and shorter attention to it, but this is my kind of metaphor for that situation about the news. So this was a lot of fun to create and decide how I was going to use in the space, in the skylight. And I had a very wonderful fabricator. I do a lot of theater design stuff. So I worked with a theater fabricator who does props and things for us. Her name is Marie Morris. So in setting it up, my husband and I and Marie set the stage. And one of the things she enjoyed was naming this particular figure. So on the other side of the newsboy here hidden, you will see that there's a little dog. And this little dog was very important to my friend Marie, who likes animals a lot. And we wanted to have the newsboy have a dog because we wanted it to also be accessible to children, because we have a lot of children who come into the library as well. And her name is Rita, as in Rita the News. So that's our little pun and fun for Rita. We've had a wonderful response to this exhibit. In the exhibit itself, we've had a lot of publicity and news. We just had a symposium because it's important to me and to my community that we actually get to talk about this. One of the things that's really fun to me about coming into the exhibit is lots of people want to talk to me about the news and the news that they're seeing on the walls. They're also responding very vocally to the things they like. They like the idea that it's very personal. The poems, a lot of people have told me some of the poems they read and they get tears in their eyes and they start thinking very deeply about the personal aspects of the news. Many men, and since I've done a lot of exhibits, I know that art exhibits typically women are more inclined to go to than men, unless the man is connected to the arts directly. But in this show, because of the content of news and because of the way it is, many men come in here and spend a lot of time reading the news, which they're familiar with, and then looking at the artist's response. And that's We've had a generous offering from the newspapers around in our area who have given us newspapers to be able to give away in this exhibit. We had a wonderful publicity person, J.D. Montgomery, who helped get the word out about this. We have one more event coming up where we're going to have a poetry reading on the 28th. And on the 29th, this show is going to come down, but it's already going to travel to Pacific Grove and the library there so that it'll extend out. And I hope that it will also go other places as well. Even if it doesn't go in this particular form, I hope that it'll go as an idea, because I think it's really important that we engage in the news and that our artists do not feel isolated from the real world or made to just be decorative in a way, but instead are given a chance to genuinely respond to what is happening in our world now, and that their voices are very important for us to hear so that we will understand and interpret the news correctly. So I think that the work here really shows how an artist can do that and what they can do to make it so that the news has real meaning and real impact.